The sky above the city burned with a strange, sickly light. Lyra ran through the shattered streets, her claws scraping against broken metal and cracked stone. Smoke and dust hung thick in the air, choking her lungs, but she ignored it. She had to keep moving. She could not stop. Her home, the shining city of Veyara, was gone. The towers that once gleamed in sunlight were twisted metal now, fallen like broken teeth. Fires raged in the distance, painting the sky red, and the screams of the dying echoed faintly over the roar of destruction. Lyra's heart ached. She had watched everything fall apart in moments. Her family, her friends, her people, all gone. She had no one. Nothing. She crouched beside the remains of a building, breathing heavily. Her hands trembled as she touched the scorched stone, remembering the laughter and warmth that had filled these streets. The city was alive once, filled with joy and music, and now it was only silence and ash. She did not know why she was still alive. Perhaps it was luck. Perhaps fate. But survival did not bring comfort. It brought emptiness. She moved forward, scavenging for anything that could help her survive. Broken containers, burned food rations, pieces of water purifiers, anything. Her stomach growled. Hunger was sharp, unrelenting. But fear was sharper. She had learned to avoid the larger debris. The predators were out. The scavenger creatures that roamed the ruined city were merciless. A low growl behind her made her freeze. Two scavenger beasts, their eyes glowing faintly in the smoke, crouched nearby. Their bodies were thin but muscular, covered in black scales. They smelled death and hunger, and Lyra could not let them see her panic. She grabbed a long metal rod, her only weapon, and readied herself. The beasts moved closer. Lyra's heart pounded, but she remembered what her father had taught her. Fear can be a weapon if you control it. Let it guide your strength. With a sudden leap, she swung the rod, striking the nearest creature. It shrieked and stumbled backward. The second lunged, but Lyra rolled to the side, keeping her balance and her focus. The fight was quick, brutal, and exhausting. By the time the scavengers fled, she was bleeding from a scratch on her arm and shaking from adrenaline. Lyra sank to her knees, alone, tired, hungry, but alive. Hours passed. Night fell and the cold settled deep in her bones. The fires from the distant ruins cast long, flickering shadows across the city. She huddled in a collapsed archway, trying to stay warm. The silence was unbearable. Not the quiet of peace, but the quiet of death. Then she saw him. At first she thought it was another scavenger or soldier, another enemy in the ruins. But he moved differently. He walked steadily, cautiously, but not with aggression. His figure was tall, solid, human in shape. He carried no visible weapon, only a small pack on his back. He paused as he saw her, hands raised slightly, showing he meant no harm. Lyra froze. She had been taught never to trust outsiders, never. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and often cruel. And yet, something in the way he looked at her was not hostile. It was careful, almost gentle. "Are you hurt?" the human asked, his voice calm and soft, carrying over the cold wind. He spoke a strange language, but she somehow understood him. Humans had a way of speaking that her mind could interpret, even if the sounds were alien. Lyra tightened her grip on the rod, her muscles tense. "Stay back," she whispered, her voice raw from crying and exhaustion. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I just want to help." For a long moment, Lyra considered fleeing, disappearing into the shadows. But the truth was simple. She had nowhere to run. Nothing to hide behind. The city was empty, broken, and dangerous. She could not survive alone much longer. Her hunger and fatigue overpowered her fear. Slowly, she lowered the rod, keeping her eyes on him. The human nodded slightly, then reached into his pack. He pulled out a small container filled with something warm. He held it out to her. "Food," he said. Lyra hesitated. Her pride wanted her to refuse. Her instincts wanted her to strike. But hunger was louder than fear. She stepped forward cautiously, grabbed the container, and devoured its contents. The warmth spread through her, not just in her stomach, but in her chest. She had not eaten in hours, maybe a day. The taste was strange, foreign, but comforting. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. The human smiled faintly. "You're safe for now," he said. "Come with me. There's a place where you can rest." Lyra looked around. The ruins stretched in every direction. She did not know if she could trust him, but he seemed different from the scavengers. Different from the soldiers who had destroyed her city. Something in his eyes told her he could survive this chaos. and maybe even help her survive too. She followed him cautiously, staying a few steps behind. He led her through the rubble, past burned-out buildings and collapsed walkways. The air was thick with ash, but he moved with purpose, guiding her to safety. Eventually, they reached a small building that had somehow remained intact. It was not much, just a room with broken furniture and a small fire pit, but it was shelter. Lyra stepped inside, scanning for traps or hidden enemies. None appeared. The human gestured for her to sit near the fire. "I'm Aaron," he said. "Captain Aaron Kane. You?" "Lyra," she replied. Aaron nodded. "Lyra, you're safe here tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out food, water, and what comes next." Lyra wanted to ask him why he was here, why he cared, but she could not find the words. Instead, she sat quietly, feeling the fire's warmth on her skin. For the first time since the city fell, she felt a flicker of something she had not felt in days. Hope. Night passed slowly. The wind outside moaned through the broken walls. Lyra could hear the faint sounds of scavengers in the distance, the creatures hunting, surviving as she did. But inside the small shelter she felt protected. Aaron had not left her side, and his presence was strange but comforting. At one point she noticed him studying her silently, not in a threatening way, but with careful curiosity. "You're strong," he said softly. "You survived a lot today." Lyra shrugged, trying to hide the tremble in her hands. "I had no choice," Aaron nodded. "Sometimes choice is survival. But even when you have no choice, you can still fight, and you did." She looked at him then, really looked. He was not like anyone she had known. His face was rough, weathered from sun and storms. His eyes were steady and clear, showing determination and kindness. She could see why humans were said to be resilient. They carried hope in their hearts, even when the world around them burned. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean slightly closer to the warmth of the fire, and to the human beside her. She was still cautious, still afraid, but for a moment she let go of some of her fear. Aaron noticed, and he did not push. He only offered a small, reassuring smile. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow we survive again, together." Lyra's eyes closed slowly. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, whether she would live or die, or what horrors would follow. But in that moment, in the company of this human who had shown her kindness when the world had taken everything from her, she felt something fragile but powerful, safety, and that was enough, for now. The fire crackled. The wind outside howled, and the city lay in ruins. But inside that small, broken shelter, a human and an alien shared warmth, two survivors in a world that had forgotten mercy. And for the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she would not face the darkness alone. The sun rose over the ruined city, casting long shadows across the broken towers. Lyra stirred, her body stiff from sleeping on the hard floor of the small shelter. For a moment, she simply lay there, staring at the cracked ceiling, remembering the chaos of yesterday. The fire in her heart had not yet gone out, but the exhaustion of surviving alone weighed heavily on her. Aaron was already awake. He had built a small fire near the entrance and was stirring a metal pot, muttering something under his breath in his strange human language. The smell of heated water and something edible reached her nose, making her stomach growl. "You should eat," Aaron said softly when he noticed her stirring. "You'll need strength today." Lyra nodded silently. She didn't trust her own voice enough to speak. Slowly, she stepped closer, and he handed her a small bowl filled with warm food. It was strange, different from anything she had ever eaten, but it smelled comforting, almost like safety. Lyra took a bite, then another, letting the warmth flow into her body. She watched Aaron move around the shelter, preparing a small pack of supplies for the day. The human worked methodically, checking their surroundings, and then paused to glance at her. "You're safe for now," he said again, his voice calm. "But this city is still dangerous. We need to move carefully." Lyra hesitated. Move? Where? She had nowhere to go, no place to hide, no people left. But when she looked at him, she saw no threat, only purpose. Slowly, she nodded. Aaron smiled faintly, then led her out of the shelter. The city was quiet, eerie in the morning light. Fires smoldered in the distance, smoke curling up like fingers toward the pale sun. Broken towers leaned at odd angles, and streets were littered with rubble. Lyra felt a pang of sorrow, but she pushed it down. Survival required focus. As they moved, Aaron kept a careful eye on the surroundings. He pointed out dangerous areas, places where the ground could collapse or where scavenger creatures might be hiding. Lyra followed closely, learning his cautious, deliberate way of moving. She realized humans had an instinct for survival that combined logic with courage. "You're very careful," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron glanced at her and nodded. "It's how we survive. You've been surviving. On your own too, haven't you?" Lyra hesitated, remembering the hours spent hiding from scavengers, hunting for food, and avoiding the deadly predators of the city. "I have," she admitted. "I know how to survive." Aaron smiled, a small, approving smile. "Good. That will help us both. We'll need every skill we have." They walked for hours, passing through ruined streets and collapsed bridges. Lyra noticed that Aaron seemed to know the city in a strange way, even though it was alien to him. He moved confidently, avoiding danger and always scanning the horizon. Sometimes he would stop, point out something she had missed, and explain in his soft human language what to watch for. Slowly, Lyra began to understand. By midday, they reached a partially collapsed building with walls still standing high. Aaron gestured toward it. "We can rest here for a while. It's safer than the streets." Lyra stepped inside, her claws scraping against the concrete floor. The building was quiet, empty except for the faint hum of the wind outside. She sank to the floor, exhausted. Aaron knelt beside her, unpacking a small water container and offering it to her. "You're stronger than you realize," he said, "but even strong people need help sometimes." Lyra's eyes flicked to him, studying his face. There was no judgment, no pity, only calm and care. For a long moment she wondered why he was helping her. Humans were supposed to be unpredictable, sometimes cruel, and yet he was different. "Why? Are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice small. Aaron looked thoughtful for a moment. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because you're alive, and you deserve a chance to keep living." Lyra stared at him, confused. She had never met a being so selfless. Her people had taught her that trust was dangerous, that survival meant relying only on yourself. And yet, she felt something stir inside her. A faint, fragile trust. The sound of movement outside startled her. She froze. Aaron noticed immediately, his hand moving instinctively toward a small tool at his belt. He motioned for her to stay still. Two scavenger creatures appeared outside the broken windows, sniffing the air. Their eyes glowed with hunger, and their claws scraped against the walls. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to run, but she remembered Aaron's calm. He was not afraid, and somehow that gave her strength. Aaron whispered, "Follow my lead." He moved quietly, picking up a small metal pipe. Lyra mirrored him, her instincts sharp. The creatures hissed and lunged at the building, but Aaron's careful strike made them hesitate. Using quick thinking, he knocked down a piece of rubble, creating a barrier. The creatures screeched in frustration and slunk away. Lyra exhaled slowly, her claws trembling. "You saved me," she whispered. Aaron nodded, a faint smile on his face. "We save each other. That's how we survive together." For the first time, Lyra felt the warmth of hope. She had been alone, abandoned, and afraid. But here was someone who showed her that survival didn't have to mean suffering in isolation. Humans, she realized, had a strength that went beyond physical skill. They had courage, compassion, and the ability to protect others, even strangers. As the day passed, Aaron taught her more than survival. He showed her how to read the city for danger, how to find safe food and water, and how to move silently to avoid predators. Lyra followed closely, learning quickly. She had survived on her own before, but the human's guidance made her stronger, faster, smarter. They stopped again near the remains of a water reservoir. Lyra knelt beside the shallow, murky water, cupping it to drink. Aaron sat nearby, keeping watch. She noticed how he never let his guard down, even when he was calm. It was strange to see such constant vigilance, but it made her feel safe. "You trust me now," he said suddenly, almost as if reading her thoughts. Lyra looked at him, startled. I think I do," she admitted. Aaron nodded. "Good. Trust is dangerous, but it's also powerful. It can save you when nothing else can." For a moment, Lyra thought about everything she had lost. Her family, her city, her life as she knew it. And yet she felt something new, something she had not felt in a long time. Possibility. She could survive, yes. But maybe, with this human, she could do more than just survive. Maybe she could live. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows, across the ruins they found a small shelter in the remnants of an old observatory. It had a collapsed roof but sturdy walls. Aaron set up a small fire while Lyra sat nearby, quietly observing him. "You should rest," he said gently. "We have another long day tomorrow, and the city isn't safe yet." Lyra nodded. She didn't argue. She was tired, and for the first time she allowed herself to lean slightly toward the warmth of the fire, and toward the human who had shown her care when the world had given her nothing. Aaron noticed but did not push. He only sat nearby, keeping watch, letting her rest in peace. Night fell, and the wind howled through the broken walls. Lyra listened to Aaron's soft breathing and the crackling of the fire. For the first time in days, she felt protected. The fear that had consumed her seemed to ease slightly, replaced by a fragile, growing trust. She realized something important. Humans were not just strong in body. They were strong in spirit. They had courage, empathy, and the ability to care for others even when it was dangerous or inconvenient. And for Lyra, who had been abandoned by everyone she knew, that strength was more valuable than any weapon or skill. As she drifted into a light, uneasy sleep, she thought of the ruined city outside, the scavengers and predators that waited in the shadows, and the endless danger that tomorrow would bring. And yet, she felt a spark of hope, because she was no longer completely alone. Because Aaron, the human, was there. And for the first time since her world fell apart, Lyra allowed herself to believe that maybe she could survive, and maybe even find something more than survival in a world that had taken everything from her.